My dad died when I was 10 years old, and I had no father-like figure to look up to. And when I got to Plainwell, I got lost, and I went from a straight A student to a failing student. As a teenager, I was totally lost, and Jack Steidl came into my life by, I guess you'd call me skipping school. I skipped about 6 weeks of school, and the truant officer got after me and took me to Plainwell, and we had a little discussion, and Jack Steidl got involved in it.
He got up about 5 o'clock and did chores for a couple hours, came to school, and Mr. Ensfield, the principal, arranged that he could get off at 12 to 2, and he'd do chores again, and he'd come back for his 3 and 4 o'clock class, or 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock class, I guess it would be, and then boom, he was practicing football. Then after that, in the winter, he did the same thing and played basketball, and in the spring, he played baseball, and he also did some shot putting and track.
He just was a tremendous impact on my life, and I guess that carried through my entire years of life is the impact he had on me.
There was a scout from Dartmouth College, Ivy League, and he checked and his grades were fine. And he came and he stayed I'd say he came to watch at least 3 games. And he'd come over and have dinner with us first and go to the game. And he wanted done real bad.
Where he did get me a scholarship to go to Dartmouth to play football. He thought I was good enough to do that.
That spring he came in to see me, kind of shuffling his feet and a little bit embarrassed. And he said, "Coach, can I talk to you?" I said, "Certainly, Don, anytime." He said, "Well," he said, "I want to thank you for helping me get a scholarship," but he said, "You know that cute little blonde I'm going with, Reva Mills?" He said, "I want to marry her, and I want to be a farmer." He said, "I want maybe take a short course at Michigan State in farming, but that's what I want to do." And hey, I said, "Hey, you're very mature, you know what you're doing, and I admire you for it."
Jack also had a sense of humor, and he said to me later that he was glad I didn't accept that scholarship because he got to kiss the bride, and not only once, but he got in line again, so he he could kiss the bride again.
One of the most outstanding things about Don was that he lacked a lot of self-confidence in himself, and that was really hard to get him over that. Well, along came sports, and along came Jack Steidl. And Jack was the kind of man that loved what he did, and he loved people. And he had the awesome ability to make people believe in theirself. And that's what he did for my husband. He helped John believe in himself. and believed that he could do sports and do a good job. And Don gained confidence.
It was so nice. He made out real well financially, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So I was real pleased. Everything worked out good. I remember Norm Youngs as being sort of an undersized athlete when he was a sophomore. And I happen to remember going by his house in my car the day before our first football practice that year. And he was sitting on the curb, and I thought, looking a little sad, so I pulled over to talk to him. And I said, "Norm, are you all set for practice tomorrow?" And he said, "Coach, I don't know if I'll be playing this year." And I said, "Why?" Real surprised, because he's an athlete. And he said, "Well, I decided that if I didn't weigh at least 130 pounds, I wouldn't be playing this year, and I only weigh 126. And I said, "Norm, I don't care how much you weigh. You are one good football player, and I want you out there." And so he changed his mind. He came out. In later years, he thanked me for giving him that sort of advice, because he had a lot of success in all sports. As a running back in football, I can still remember we were playing one of our great rivals here at Otsego, and we had a much better team that year than they did. We were ahead about 35 points, and I put the entire second team in, offense, and they got in a lot of trouble. They had two 15-yard penalties, and all of a sudden they were back on their own 5-yard line, and maybe 4-yard line. And Norm came to me and he said, "Coach, how about putting us back in? Let us just move the ball out a little bit." Because you know, we didn't want to pile it on. When you're 35 points ahead against a rival you respect, you don't want to pile it on. Well, the quarterback, Ron Horrigan, called a dive play with Norm Youngs, who could probably get 4 or 5 yards any time. But instead, Norm broke it for 96 yards. And I think that's still a Plainville High School record from distance from scrimmage, 96 yards.
This story does not involve an athletic event. It involves something that occurred while I was with Jack Steidl, and it's a story about in the winter of 1958, Jack Steidl and I went over to scout a ball game, a basketball game in Allegan, and after seeing the game we were on our way back home to Plainwell, and we were between Otsego and Plainwell on our way back home. And as Jack was driving along the road, there was a man laying on the shoulder of the road, and we almost hit the guy. We had to drive around him. And Coach pulled over on the side of the shoulder and went back to see what was going on with the guy. And as we later found out, he was passed out there, and he had a prayer book or a Bible in one hand, and there was an empty pint bottle of vodka, I believe it was, right there at the time. And so Coach was able to get the guy up on his feet and get him back home. We took him back to his house in the Otsego area. Had to go back out of our way. Coach had to half carry him to get him in the car and get him back. The reason I'm relating this story is because I think it points out the kind of a man Streidl really is. He's a very humane individual, cares for everybody. Everybody counts in his eyes, and everybody's an equal human being. That pointed out something to me as an athlete, that it doesn't make a difference if you're the greatest athlete in the world, but what counts is that you're a human being, and Jack Streidl's that kind of guy.
Our next inductee from the state of Michigan, Jack Steidl. Welcome, family. Welcome. The young guy in the middle is Jack. So you know. Jack Steidl coached football and track for 38 years and boys basketball for 6 years at Plainwell High School in Michigan. Jack also spent 2 years serving our country during the Korean War. His football, basketball, and track teams won 76% of the games played. Before state football playoffs, one of his Plainwell teams was declared the mythical Class B champ of Michigan. Jack had a runner-up state track team, 3 third-place finishes, and had several district track team championships. Jack's track teams won 10 conference titles. His football teams won 9 conference championships. Jack mentions that his 1945-46 Plainwell basketball teams received a state championship game only to lose to then River Rouge High School. Jack has been inducted into the following Hall of Fames: Detroit Free Press, Western Michigan, and in 1982 was inducted into the Michigan High School Hall of Fame, inducted into the Michigan High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame, Upper Peninsula Hall of Fame, and Plainwell High School Hall of Fame. In 1975, the Plainwell High School football field was renamed Streidl Field. Nominated for National High School Athletic Coaches Association Coach of the Year in 1979. In 1982, was one of the coaches of the Michigan East-West High School All-Star Game. When asked what he thought was most proud of Jack Steidl of his career, stated simply, "We raised 11 children. They all went through college, and all are doing well, as we can see in front of us. 8 of the children were there after their daughter Diane passed away with cancer. Jack and his wife Phyllis raised the 3 children of them. Additional children are Jonathan, Rebecca, Margot, Joy, Cameron, Cynthia, and Patrick. From Michigan, this wonderful man, our newest inductee into the Hall of Fame, John